So I'm really happy to be here, and I'd like to thank you also for joining joining my talk. And okay, let's start. Today we're going to talk about early stage growth. So I'll give you some tips and some processes on what you can do for your startup when you're at early stage to get customers. If you want to find the presentation online, you can just follow the link. It's bit.ly/early stage tips. So everything is on the web. So let's start. I don't think that I have to say something for myself because you already heard it. I'm a growth marketer. My friend Nuno loves it. And I love building products. I've co-founded 2 companies, a growth marketing agency, and a software as a service platform. So a few years ago, when I started, actually 5 years ago, it was a bit difficult to find what works for your company. So I was searching on the web, but there were, very few resources. But now things changed. Now, if you just Google about startup growth, about early startup growth, about growth marketing, about software as a service, and everything, you can find a ton of resources. You can find, for example, academies. You can find blogs. You can find conferences to join. You can, for example, here in Insights, we're talking about it. So there are a ton of things you can do. More blogs, email newsletters, startup schools, so everything is out there. And I'm really happy about it. But, okay, so there is a problem with that, right? And you may say that, okay, if everything is out there, then I can just read it, and then I can go directly and apply it to my company. But unfortunately, is that most of the times you will read a lot of tactics. For example, how to do a PPC campaign, how to hack the email, how to make a viral loop, a referral marketing program, and all of this stuff. And you go, you start doing it, but you don't see the results. And the problem actually is that most of the people that start a company, and that's normal, totally normal, they have weak principles around growth, they have no process, and they have little experience because they're starting out, right? So what I'll show you right now is 3 main things. The basic principles that you should master, a very basic process that you should follow when you run your marketing experiments, all right? And then some actionable tips, actually some lessons learned from my own experience when you're starting out. So let's start with the principles. There are 4 main principles that you should master. As you will see, on this side, on the one side, these are the quantitative, let's say, principles, and on the other side, there are the qualitative ones. The first thing that you should work on is quantitative modeling. And what's that? Actually, how it works is that you need to take your historical data, your metrics from your Google Analytics, from your mix panel, from all the other tools that you use, and try to model them and see what this data will look like in the future. And why is that? Because if you do that, then you will be able to let's say, to take more educated decisions about what to do today. The next thing is data analysis. So you need to have a basic principles of how you can understand your data. Because what's the problem today is that you get, let's say, a mobile app or a website, you put some Google Analytics or Mixpanel or whatever, and then you just go to the tool and see your data. But the thing is that you don't understand what these data mean. And the worst thing is that even if you understand this data, you don't take actions on it. So you need to have a basic understanding of how data works. Now, let's go to the other part. The other part is about more qualitative, let's say, principles. The first thing you need to have is to understand basic principles of user psychology. And why is that? Because you need to understand actually what makes your customers tick. How can I change my product? What should be my copyright? What would be the campaign that I want to run? And so on, in order to hook my customers, acquire them, retain them, activate them, and all of this stuff. And then, as I get user psychology, I have some data, then I need to bring everything in life. And how that happens is by storytelling. So I need to take all of this data, to take all of the findings from the user psychology that I understand, and put them into my product. And what that means, for example, Viral Loops is about our target customers are startups. So our storytelling is that we are a startup and we help startups, and we write content about startups. Our copyright is cooler. It's not like a corporate and enterprise formal copywriting and all of this stuff. So these are the basic 4 principles that you should master. And then on top, you can build everything up, because don't start by learning super sophisticated paid advertising, super sophisticated email marketing, and all of this stuff. Start from the basic principles. Now about the process. These are the 3 key ingredients of a solid and effective growth process. The first is high tempo testing, and I'll explain to you about it. The second one is that you want to build a growth machine into your product. And the last is that you need to execute strongly. Now let's see one by one. First, high tempo testing. So what is high tempo testing? Simply put, it's just a process that you commit your team that each week you run a specific amount of marketing experiments. What is a marketing experiment? It could be a change in my product. For example, a change in my product that will have an impact on my user acquisition, on my user activation, retention, referrals, and so on. It could be a marketing campaign, like a paid advertising campaign or something. So it could be anything that can increase your main metrics. Why is this is so important? Because the more experiments you run, all right, and in a short period of time, then the faster you learn about your business, and you have more chances to succeed as fast as you can. And why speed is really important? Because when you're a startup, you don't have time, all right? You burn cash, and even if you make revenues, you burn your money, and you don't have time. You need to go as fast as possible. So that's the one thing. It's very simple. Just each week, we need to execute, for example, 3 marketing experiments. And then you can gradually, increase that number. The second thing is, all right, now we have a high tempo testing. So we kick-started our marketing and product marketing and so on, and we're running experiments. But then what is really important is, as we grow and as we move forward, we need to find what works, what it doesn't work, and then try to build a growth machine. What is a growth machine? Is building, let's say, methods and building parts of your product that drive growth to your company. In order to do so, you need to follow 6 steps. The first one, for example, that you could do it every Monday, for example, in order to come up with the experiments that I just showed you, is to brainstorm with your team. And actually, it would be better first to brainstorm with yourself, all right, in order to have a more productive meeting, because I hate a bit these meetings. But that's another story. So when we brainstorm and come up with marketing ideas, we create something that is called a backlog of ideas. So it's just let's say a document or a Trello or your project management tool or wherever you want to do so, and you write down all of the ideas that you have, how you can grow these metrics, right? The second one is prioritization. This is one of the most important steps, because here the key is that you should execute only the experiments that will have the maximum impact in the shortest period of time, all right? And how we can prioritize. For example, you can prioritize based on impact, based on which metric, for example, your revenue, your activation, your retention, this experiment will increase. You can prioritize with how much time you need to implement this experiment, because, for example, a lot of marketing experiments may need just a few hours of your marketer, or it may need, let's say, 2 days from your development team, which is quite huge for a startup, right? Then we prepare a very brief doc to design the test, because what we're doing is that we try not to execute, let's say, the perfect marketing experiment and make the perfect change in our product, but we try to find really smart ways and quick wins to test it out and see if that works. Then we implement it, and here is the execution part. We analyze, data analysis that I showed you, so you try to understand if this experiment worked. And last, this is one of the steps that most startups don't care a lot, is that you need to systemize it. And this is the growth machine part. What it means that, for example, when we run, let's say, a successful marketing campaign, a user acquisition campaign, then we need to document how we did it, what changes we did, and prepare something like a playbook. So another team member can run it, or when we grow up, for example, and get more marketers, they can just go to our document and see how our user acquisition campaigns work. And if it's a change within the product that brought us the metrics that we want, then we productize it. So we put them inside the product to automate the whole process. So that's about the growth machine. This is an example of how, for example, your backlog could look like. This is just a tool we use, but you can use it, for example, in a Google spreadsheet or in an Excel or whatever, or just notes or whatever works for you, all right? And of course, execution. You need to commit that you will deliver each week the marketing experiments that you planned in the beginning of the week, okay? You need to deliver everything. You don't have excuses for that. So try to find, I don't know, smart ways to do it. Try to outsource some of the work. Try to, I don't know, to whatever you can in order to deliver the experiment that you want. So I just talked about the basic principles, and you should start from there. So for example, about the principles, you can just start reading some books, start digging into your analytics, and so on. About the process, it's the one that I just showed you, so you need just to try to apply it and learn on the way. And now about experience, which is the third, let's say, weak part. Of course, I can't give you my experience, but given the time we have, I'll share with you my favorite 5 lessons learned during the last year. So first, when you start and when you're at early stage, most probably you are 5, 10 people, I don't know, even 15, okay, I don't know, but it's quite big. And what happens is many times we leave our engineering team, work on a specific, let's say, or on our features, on our bugs. The marketing team works on other metrics, like our revenue, like our user acquisition, activation, and so on. The product team prepares the features. The founder, for example, may have, may build the relationships with the investors and so on. But this is difficult because you're a small team and you need to deliver. So one of the main things that you can do is that each month you should have only one top-level KPI, all right? So for example, in a SaaS company, in a software as a service company, our ultimate KPI is the monthly recurring revenue, all right? But we have this KPI, this is the North Star metric, let's say, of the company. But then what we need to do is somehow to grow it. And in order to do so, we need to find an input, a metric that helps the MRR grow, actually, and try to grow this metric, because it is much easier to, to come up with ideas about it, to execute on it, and so on. So for example, if let's say your pain point is to activate your users from free trial to paid subscribers, then the whole company, the whole team should focus on that metric and only, right? So your engineers should come up with ideas what to change, let's say, on the product side or on your API, or I don't know, in the backend, to help the users have a better experience and activate them. Your marketing team should focus, let's say, on the onboarding, should focus on talking with the users, should focus on watching videos on what they do, all right, in order to make changes within the product and try to activate them. Your founder, for example, who most probably does sales, let's say, he should talk one by one to all of your users if you're a B2B. If you're a B2C, try to come up with the best customers. This is a tip from Nuno, actually. All right? And this is how we did it. In our case, for example, here with donuts, I couldn't show you our KPI, But for example, last month, our main problem was to activate our free trial users to paid subscribers. And this is how we increased our numbers by, the whole team focused on one KPI and only. Number 2, this is really great. When we started at Viral Loops, because we were well educated, we know the processes, we know everything, all right? Everything. I mean, we know a lot of stuff about it. We built a very sophisticated onboarding flow. So based on the behavior of the user, based on the segment of the user, based on the campaign he was running, then we had different emails, different onboarding flows within the product. It was really awesome. Our product manager was, going crazy. But we had a major issue in activation again. And what we decided to do is that we say, okay, stop. Okay, we don't want to build any more sophisticated things. Okay, and we decided that for each single sign-up that we were getting, we will reach out to them, we will check out their website, come up with ideas of how they can use their product. And actually, this was the first thing and the most important thing that we did that increased our activation big time 4 months ago when we started, all right? So this is very important. Talk to your users first, and then try to understand how they onboard to your product, and then build flows within the product with email marketing and so on. An actionable tip, for example, what we do is that we use Slack for our communication. We use Intercom for communication within the application. We integrate them, and when we get a new sign-up comes into our app, then we have it here. So I'm notified in my mobile, and directly I'm checking, the first team member that's available. We're going out, we're checking out the website of the user, and then we reach out to him. And we did that for around 3 months, right? And now we automated all of this stuff, and we're seeing great results on that. Oh, that's nice. Now, when you start and when you're building a company, you have a plan, right? You have a financial plan with some projections, for example. Okay, that by the end of the year I'll be, at that revenue, at that number of users, and so on. And in order to do so, you say that I need to grow, let's say, 25% month over month, or I need to grow 30% or 50%, or I don't know how much. And in the beginning it looks good, because 25%, I can grow my company 25% month over month, right? But when you start to doing so, you see that you don't grow as fast as you thought in the beginning. And the fallacy is that you shoot for a growth rate, all right? But what you need to do instead, okay, you need to put a growth rate that will help you achieve your numbers, but then you should build it bottom up. And what I mean by that? Instead of just say that I want, for example, 100 customers, 10,000 users, or whatever. For example, this is what we do in Viral Loops. So if you're a B2B company, what you should do instead, you should reverse, let's say, calculate your growth rate and put it on Earth. For example, in our case, we say that we note down every customer and the probability we have to close them in order to, to get them activate. And the revenue, most probably, they will bring to us. And based on this calculation, we say, okay, this month we can reach, let's say, 30% month-over-month growth. And if we see that with these numbers, and you see some probabilities, these are not all closed customers. And if you see that, for example, with these numbers, you're just at 10% or 50%, then you need to take action as fast as possible in order to reach the growth rate you have. Now, if you're a B2C company, because you can't write, one user each time, what you can do instead is you can reverse calculate your marketing channels. So, for example, you could say that, okay, I have, let's say, 10,000 budget to run on my marketing. I will spend, 2,000 on Facebook. I expect this click-through rate. I expect this conversion rate. And then I expect that I will get, for example, 100 users. So, again, you can reverse calculate it early on. Number 4, and this is my favorite. This is actually one of the biggest mistakes that I've done when I started 3 years ago, not now, is that, when you raise money, you see, okay, I just raised my money, I'm an early stage company, so I'm a bit worried, but I have in front of me, I don't know, 12 months to burn my funding. And you say, okay, I have 12 months, I can build my product the first, I don't know, months, and then I have time to do things, right? But it's not like that. You need always to have a sense of urgency, because you don't have, you can't lose even a single day, because when, in the beginning, you won't realize that, because you have money, you have some time. But if, for example, you realize afterwards that you have, let's say, money for 3 months or for 4 months or 6 months or 8 months, I don't know, then you realize that you need to act as fast as possible. So somehow to think of it is that you should think every month as a sprint that ends at 12 o'clock the last day of this month, and your next sprint starts the next month. So it's something like that. You never stop, you can't lose a single day for reaching your growth. And last, I kept that for the end, is that you should build your growth in your product and not outside, all right? It's not good if you come up with great marketing campaigns, for example, all right? I will change my website and it will be super cool and all of the users will like that. If your product sucks, all right, they will come in and then they will leave immediately. And why this is the most important thing? Because the holy grail of growth is retention. You need each user that you take to try to retain them and engage them and stay in your product. Because if you have a good product, so your growth it's within your product, all right, then you have retention, and then you can have, for example, you can afford higher customer acquisition costs. Then you will have higher virality and word of mouth because people are happy using our product. So this is the key to growth. So don't underestimate it and focus, on top funnel, let's say, marketing campaigns only.
How do you calculate the probability of a customer, like a future customer becoming an actual customer? This probability percentage, I don't understand.
Sure. The probability, you can apply it easier in B2B. And basically, for example, if you have a signed contract, then it's 100%, for example. If you have sent out a proposal and you start negotiating, and for example, you believe that you will close that customer, you can put it, for example, 80%. So, and if for example, a customer asks you, reached out to you and asked you for a proposal, then you can have it, let's say, 60%. But basically, this is an idea, but you should adapt it in your own business because you may have different, stages of the funnel, different processes, and so on. Oops. Mm-hmm.
How do you calculate impact, or how do you estimate?
Yeah. So the first thing is that you should map actually each experiment with a specific KPI that you think that it will increase. So the first thing is that. And if, for example, as I told you, your focus is to activate your customers, let's say that, for example, from free trial to paid, then your main KPI that you focus is the activation rate, right? So if you come up with an experiment that will help you to retain your customers or that will help you to acquire more customers, then this experiment won't have the impact that your business needs at that time. So the first thing to calculate impact is to think, okay, what metric can this experiment increase? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, for example, to try to estimate that if I make that change, this is an assumption always, because all the experiments start with an assumption. Okay, if I make this change, let's say what would be the increase, all right? And then on that increase, for example, If, for example, you have the activation rate from 5 to 8%, let's say, and you suppose that this experiment will increase that, then you need also to have some absolute numbers in order to understand the impact. Because many times there is the risk that you just calculate the impact by ratios, but in the end, you know, the numbers are 2 customers, 3 customers, and the impact it's very low. So this is the second thing. Have absolute numbers connected.
No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.